Okay, so we are now on Season 6, Episode 6, in 2016 of My Little Pony Friendship is Magic, No Second Prances. And this was one of those episodes where you got pretty well spoiled on between the promotional material and the advertisements, that you sort of knew what was going to be in it before it aired. I'd like to say I called it when I was joking around about episode synopsises, but I really didn't call it so much as I knew that Trixie was on the promotional material, so I figured she had to be in at least one episode of this season. The fear that I had going into this episode is that it would end up being a lot like What About Discord? That Twilight would spend the episode being paranoid that Trixie was still evil, and she would have a hard time forgiving her. And while that is sort of exactly what happened in this episode, there was a lot more to it than just rehashing What About Discord. And yes, a lot of stuff that Trixie said and did with Starlight, you could have removed Trixie and put Discord in her place, and it would have been the exact same episode with the exact same motivations. The only difference being the ending, that Trixie as a mortal was in a lot more danger than the immortal Discord would have been while attempting that Manticore trick. The episode starts out with Twilight setting the dinner table because she thinks she's going to work in a friendship lesson, still not learning that you can't actually teach friendship lessons, that you have to let friendship lessons happen on their own and let ponies learn from life experience. That this isn't a class that you can sit down at your desk and listen to lectures and get something out of it. Twilight is setting the table and trying to get Starlight to do it by hoof so that they can learn a lesson together. Starlight doesn't listen and sets the table with magic like she's accustomed to. Twilight explains that they're having a dinner party and Starlight is expected to bring a guest to make one new friend before the day is over so that she can impress Princess Celestia and in turn boost her own ego and self-image so that she herself, Twilight Sparkle, can look like she's great and impressive and accomplished in front of her own teacher, Princess Celestia. The next half of this is sort of a repeat of what we did in Maud Pie. We watched the rest of the main six try to give Starlight Glimmer special friends that she can get to know, only to have each of the situations backfire. Just like the main six couldn't get to know Maud because Maud was so unusual, the friends of the main six can't get to know Starlight Glimmer because she keeps using her magic and messing up various situations. This whole thing leads up to the spa sequence, and that sequence is done very cleverly. For those of you who did not get spoiled, and there are a couple out there, what you see in the spa sequence is a pony with blue fur talking to Starlight Glimmer. You might recognize her voice, or you might not, but with her face and mane covered up, you can't tell right away who it is that's sitting in the chair behind Starlight. It's only when Starlight approaches Twilight and announces she made a new friend, a friend who's great, a friend who's powerful, that the audience finally gets the reveal of Trixie. And this is where the Twilight Sparkle acts paranoid like she did in What About Discord plotline begins. Like with Feeling Pinty Teen and other such examples, when Twilight is being her most paranoid, she takes to hiding inside bushes and spying on ponies. And Twilight wants to choose the friends that she approves of Starlight making, and to slightly alter what Sweetie Belle said about her crocheting. It was pandering, but I loved it! Having Vinyl Scratch of all ponies just pop out of those bushes, and running with the gag that she'll say yes to anything as long as she bobs her head up and down to the music and appears to be nodding in agreement to you, works as a great gag. And then, of course, you gotta have Derpy being clumsy and Cranky being, well, cranky. Now those three characters are at a dinner that's not actually a dinner because the final guest hasn't arrived, and they're just going to sit in awkward silence across from the Princess of the Sun as the ice sculpture melts in what will be a very humorous payoff at the very end. I can't help but laugh at this ridiculous situation as Twilight continues to go insane and obsess over Starlight, Glimmer, and Trixie's relationship, while Celestia rightfully rolls her eyes and sighs that she's just putting up with the same kind of stuff that she has to hear all the time, and she's getting a little tired of it. But she's not going to step in and interfere. She's going to stay out of it and let things play out, as a good teacher would. Although some people might call it a bit lazy. Well, it's sort of up for debate whether or not Celestia should really be getting involved and interfering in Twilight's life. It's obvious that Twilight is doing way too much involvement and interfering in Starlight's life, and still has to learn to stay out of things and stop meddling with the important lessons that Starlight should be discovering for herself. Twilight has a lot of issues with both her ego and her dorkiness and her need for approval from others in this episode, and it turns her into the villain of the story. In the meantime, Trixie is sort of playing the Diamond Tiara character. Little bit manipulative in getting her way, and a bit of that sarcastic personality when she loses her only friend and claims, I didn't need a friend to begin with, I'm glad she's gone, and tries to pretend that she's okay, even though she's clearly heartbroken. The Trixie's little line when she has this magic show and the title's super long and ridiculous, and she says it's a working title. She used that line 3 times and it works great as a running gag. When Pinkie Pie was shooting off her party cannon in her episode with Rarity and Maud Pie, the party cannon got shot off several times back to back to back to back to back, and it was done way too frequently, way too soon to work as a running gag. I feel running gags are much better spaced out. Another example of a running gag not working because the timing between examples was wrong and it was done too frequently was in Rainbow Rocks, when everyone was offending Sunset Shimmer and then saying, oops, sorry, no offense. And speaking of Rainbow Rocks, this is a perfect example, too, of how you can have the same character in both worlds, but they can live completely different lives. In Pony World, Trixie is a traveling magician with no friends. The human Trixie has at least 2 friends as they perform alongside of her in their band that they have during Rainbow Rocks. These friends seem to be absent from the pony show, but would be interesting to ponyfy them and put them back alongside Pony Trixie to help enrich her life in some way. The other interesting thing that happened at the end of this episode was Trixie's emotional state after she lost her only friend. She goes on stage with a very self-loathing attitude, downing herself and insulting herself as she goes on introducing the show. She's lost her zest and energy and her ability to enjoy what she does for a living, and her full Trixie personality is completely missing at this point in the show. But the show must go on, and she's going to go on with the Manticore routine as scheduled. Then Trixie slimes into the cannon, knowing full well that she will not survive being shot into the Mantitore's mouth. Hoping upon hope that the last minute a friend will come along and save her and teleport her out of the Manticore, completing the trick. But also knowing full perfectly well that this is not going to happen. That her friend will not show up, and she's going to shoot herself into the mouth of this beast, and then that's going to be it for her. She's going to basically end her life going out in the most spectacular way possible. She goes into this act knowing that there's a high chance that she's not going to make it out. And when you combine that with an earlier episode where Apple Bloom says that without friends she doesn't think she can feel anything, it feels like Season 6 is taking a bit of a darker turn and slipping that darker turn under the radar and past the censors. The final thought of this whole thing, they did a great setup putting Trixie and Starlight together and making them best friends, making Starlight Trixie's first best friend. Now that the two are such close friends, the longer the series goes before it brings Trixie back, the more I'm going to be disappointed in this episode. This is a great way to set up the idea of Trixie and Starlight being such good friends that Trixie's name will be mentioned in conversation, or Trixie herself will be shown in another episode. And another episode and another one, and we'll see more and more episodes where Trixie and Starlight are doing things together. I hope that's what we're going to get. If we don't see Trixie and Starlight together, the longer it goes by before Trixie returns to the series, the worse this episode is at setting up their new friendship. Anyhow, that's all I have to say for right now. As always, I've already over-recorded this and have to do some serious editing. Thank you for watching, and good night.